see more and more. Thank you, Allison. We are starting to see more and more new faces popping onto these calls every single week. And the purpose of these really is to build community and to really reimagine the future of sheltering together. So I'm going to pause here. If anybody else is new on the call today, even if you were invited by me, please either use the chat or unmute. We'd love to hear from you and where you're from. Megan, I know you are going to be speaking later, but just to get it kicked off and get everybody else warmed up, why don't you get us going?
Hi, I'm Megan. I am actually new to the call. I'm with South Suburban Humane Society. I've been here 10 years now, worked my way up, and now I'm Director of Operations. So I'll be presenting later about our Radical RTO project.
Amazing. Well, we're super excited to have you. As you are introducing yourself, people are saying hi in the chat. I have my good friend, Kristen G here, who I'm going to ask to get us kicked off with the question of the day. And Kristen, also please introduce yourself and what you do.
Hey everybody, I'm Kristen. I am the grants manager for Austin Pets Alive. So I am the whole grants team for all of our operations. In terms of submitting proposals, tracking our programs and data sets, and then reporting those successes back out to our wonderful grantors. So I coordinate with a lot of our teams across the board. And I know most of you are very familiar with APA and the life-saving programs that we have. So that could be a little challenging sometimes to keep your finger on the pulse of all of those things all at once.
Awesome. You want to get us kicked off with a question?
Yeah. So can I do a fun one? Is that sure. Good?
Sure.
So I always think of November 1st as the beginning of gratitude season. That's how I phrase it for myself. So I was wondering what everybody's feeling most grateful for learning this year, like whether it was from another person or through trial and error. I've had a lot of those moments myself. But what is the thing that you are going to end this year on saying, thank goodness I learned this and I get to share it with other people?
I love it. And Mary, you normally help us really frame these by reminding us how long we've been in this COVID world. So please unmute and just kind of share that lesson as well.
So this is the start of month number 22.
Holy smokes. All right, anybody, Libby, I'm going to call on you because I see you there. And she's like, oh shit, he called on me. So unmute and tell us something that you are grateful for learning this year. And come on, folks, let's get this chat lit up for Kristen a little bit with some answers as well.
Grateful for learning. Well, there's so many things. I am in the fundraising world. And so coming to these meetings have really expanded my realm of animal welfare. So I just appreciate all the interesting things that have come through these calls each Monday. And when I miss one, I get very disappointed. So I think I wasn't on last week, but so I'm grateful for all of you for sharing the wonderful things you do and allowing us to beg, borrow, and tweak.
Thanks, Libby. My goal in life is to create FOMO. So you have checked that box for me. Kelly C, please unmute and tell us what you put into the chat, please.
Hey, sorry, I unvideoed instead of unmuted. I am just excited and grateful for all this virtual technology that can bring us all together this year and last year and next year and forever.
Thank you, Kelly. Would anybody else like to unmute? Bethany, I see you putting into the chat and you've been a big part of helping organize these calls. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I just put the continued sense of community and just being inspired. So kind of going off of what Kelly just said, because we're so connected virtually all of the time, like we get to hear and be inspired by folks working across the country doing neat and cool stuff. And so I feel overwhelmed with that inspiration today.
Amazing. Well, speaking of inspiration, my favorite part of Mondays, as Mary knows, are Mary's Monday motivation. So I'm going to kick it over to the bedazzled, highlighted, sparkling Mary Smith.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Kristen, for kicking us off. I love talking about gratitude because that certainly gives me the kind of attitude adjustment that I need on a daily basis. So thank you for that. Hey, everybody. If you don't know who Dr. Blackwell is, and even if you do know who Dr. Blackwell is, if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Blackwell, then check out the Candid Conversation on November 10th. It's at 12 o'clock Pacific time, so you can make the time zone adjustments. He is a living legend, a national treasure, just such a kind man who has done so much for the human-animal bond and for helping us really understand that pets and people are bonded family and belong together. And if you have about an hour to spend, I'd encourage you to spend it on November 10th listening to his story. He's just a remarkable man. I also want to tell you that our friends in Michigan, Matt Pepper and his team from the Michigan Humane Society, do you know what they did? They started a program, really small program. They set aside some foster homes so that people who were going into hospitals for surgical or other kind of visits that required overnight stays wouldn't have to worry about their animals. And so they've connected with some local hospitals and the hospital social workers who do the pre-op surgical visits, which if any of us have had any procedures, my advanced age, I've had quite a few. So I'm very familiar with that whole pre-surgical op. And the whole idea that you could go into it and not have to worry about who would take care of your pets because Michigan Humane has put a program together. I think that's pretty rock star. And again, it's a really small program, but it's really doing some great things. And it all starts with making connections. And I think the thing I'm most grateful for in all of these 22 months is the way we've really come to see how much is happening in the community and how we can intersect with the community to do our work better. And I think that is humbling and grateful and exciting. And as we move forward with that, I encourage us to just take those times to appreciate how far we've come and to think about where we could go if we were all working together, talking more, figuring out what makes us more alike than focusing on those things that make us so different. And I want to thank you all for being here today. We have a great lineup. Bobby, thank you for putting together this a November full of great learning experiences. Have a great week, you guys.
And then you normally say, and with that, I'm out. And that's what gets me really going for the next part. So I'm going to drop it in for you, Mary Smith. All right, folks, let's open it up for some national updates. And Mary, as always, thank you so much for that inspiration.
Hey guys, it's Bethany. I will hop in here. We've got Best Friends has a couple live events coming up virtually in the evening. This week on November 3rd, we're going to be doing a dog behavior and handling in the shelter webinar with a couple of folks from Best Friends. This is kind of 101, so it's definitely beginner's welcome sort of webinar where you can learn basic handling, understanding day-to-day interactions with dogs in your shelter environment. I'll drop the link in the chat to register. And then we are starting our town halls again next week. We're super excited to get those going again for winter. We are starting with people, pets, and policies. This is going to be a town hall that focuses on the co-branded IMLA resource we put out earlier this year that helps organizations work with municipal lawyers to implement community-supported sheltering. So some of the topics for that town hall will include breed neutral dangerous dog laws, inclusive housing ordinances, CAP programs, and ways to avoid liability, which I know is something we all worry about. That's going to be November 9th at 6 p.m. Central. These, of course, are always free and always recorded if you can't make the live event.
Thanks, Bethany. And then how about the amazing conference coming up next year?
Yes, we do. Our conference, we are for about 2 more weeks accepting proposals to speak at the conference. It will be July 7th through the 9th. I hope I got those days right, in person in Raleigh, North Carolina. We were really excited last year to start to introduce speakers from not only all sorts of organizations, but all sorts of positions. So if you've never spoken before, if you're a frontline worker or a supervisor or middle management, we absolutely want to hear from you. You guys have amazing insights to share, and we can support first-time speakers. So please submit your proposal to speak at conference. We'd love to hear from you.
Bethany, we have so much synergy on a Monday because those were going to be the exact words that were going to come out of my mouth, is that I know in animal welfare, imposter syndrome runs deep, and a lot of us are always like, I'm not good enough to be up there. Look at all these great speakers. I will personally tell you that Best Friends was one of the first places that allowed me and created space for me to be able to speak and build my confidence in being able to do things like this. So I highly encourage you, if you've never turned one in before, make sure you turn one in. It is very easy. And obviously, since Bethany's a part of the Monday family, if you need any help, shoot her an email. I'm sure she'd be happy to help you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks. And thanks, Sean Dunn, for popping that in the chat.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have a camera. I'm so sorry, but I will reiterate what Bobby just said too about the Best Friends Conference. I was just a lowly executive director in Middle America and had the opportunity to speak quite a bit at the conferences, and it definitely increased my confidence as a director. So please apply. Now I am with the Human Animal Support Services project, and we are really excited to invite every one of your organizations to become partner organizations with the Haas project. Casey is going to drop some links in the chat, and we'd like everybody to jump on board, be a part of the project. We're going to ask you to fill out a self-assessment with the Haas elements, and then to join our Shelter Animals Count Coalition. So we're really excited about this program that launched today. So we hope you all join. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie Case. And speaking of SAC, I'm super excited that Stephanie, the new executive director, is here to really share what SAC is working on. I'm so grateful for Jamie Case. She's really become like the work mom of Haas. I'm just all about having fun and making relationships, and she makes sure that I put everything back where I got it from. So thank you, Jamie Case, for that.
Hey everybody, Stacy here with the Community Cats podcast. I am heavily into planning for 2022. So for the conferences at the Community Cats podcast, as well as looking for guests on the podcast. So we have the online cat conference, United Spay Alliance conference, online kitten conference, fundraising day, Feline Leukemia Day. I'm all about looking for speakers as well as podcast guests. So just go to communitycatspodcast.com and or shoot me an email at stacy@communitycatspodcast.com. I'll put that in the chat. If you have any ideas for speakers and guests, etc., whether it's yourself or others, send me a tip. That's great. And then this coming Saturday, we have another Trapper certification workshop. So feel free to send that information out to folks who are interested in getting all the tips and tricks and learning how to trap community cats in a safe and effective way. And that's all on the website too. So thanks so much for letting me shout out for the cats.
Thanks, Stacy. Another fun note, Bethany and Stacy were two of the people that helped make these calls possible. So I'm so glad that both of you are on here giving us all the great updates. Courtney Hudson, I see you on here. I know you have a very special update for us as well. So come on up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Courtney. I am the data coordinator for AMPA and the Haas project. I am currently one of the 4 co-leads involved in the community engagement job alike. So I'm super excited to launch that. Our goal is to just have community members around the nation come in and talk about what community engagement means to them, how they're involved, and what they can do to become more involved. So just basically a peer group rally to get the engagement going.
Courtney, I know that you're sitting in a data position currently, but can you tell us a little bit about what gets you excited about community engagement and maybe what you did previous to Haas?
Yeah, so before I joined the Haas project or even the AMPA team, I was working as a health and wellness researcher with an AAUL, which is the Austin Area Urban League division in Austin, Texas. our goal was to work with the community that was underserved. I was basically taking the data from the surveys that I created, using that to go back to our funders and say, hey, this community is in need of these things, and it's ideal for us to get this through the funding. The goal was to take the bridge of the haves and the haves not in Austin, come together as a community and figure out how we can help everyone. So I've always been about getting boots on the ground, getting the work done, helping those who can't help themselves. And I kind of just took that role and dug right into it when I came to AMPA, and not just helping humans that are underserved, but also helping the animals out there that can't speak for themselves. So I'm loving it here, and I think I'm right where I need to be.
Well, we are honored and blessed to have you, my sister, and keep on doing the good work that you're doing. All right, let's keep getting this rolling for the last couple updates before we get going with our first presentations. All right, then let's rock and roll. So what I really loved about this chat when we talked about what things that we were grateful for, it talked about building community, meeting people, innovating the work that we do, and honoring the human animal bond. All things, I'm about all of those lifestyles. I love it, I love it, I love it. And so a big part of what we talk about in honoring the human animal bond is getting pets back home. And how are we innovating the way that we are helping lost pets get back to their family? So I'm super excited to have Megan Schoenbeck, Director of Operations of South Suburban Humane Society, here to tell us a little about what they did to innovate their program. So over to you, Megan.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Cool. So we put together at South Suburban Humane Society a radical RTO program. So it involves a lot of things, and a lot of it has to do with PetPoint. And PetPoint really helped us out with creating some of this. So it all kind of starts with reporting. So we created our own lost found report that then matches the fields that PetPoint asks for when submitting a lost report or a found report through PetPoint. So we used LGL forms, but you can use really any form creator, probably Google Forms would be fine. But we have all of the questions and form fields that PetPoint asks for. So, you know, is it a lost report or is it a found report? The date, today's date, the date that the pet was lost or found, owner's information, and then the pet's information. And then very importantly, we have it right there where people can submit a photo of the pet that's missing. We have found that found reports typically the people don't like to submit a picture for some reason, but usually I would say about 95% of the lost reports do come with a picture of the pet, which is incredibly helpful. So we have it all on our website, all condensed there. So our website's not the best by any means, and we're currently going through a revamp of our website, but we have everything listed here. This link here is what sends them directly to the form that I just showed you. And then it just kind of lists step by step on what to do. So then we have, let's see, I skipped a little bit too far. So our pet resource coordinator who works remotely right now, she takes each and every lost report or found report that is submitted and uploads them into PetPoint. I personally, just based on our staffing profile, I look at every lost or found report that comes in. Ideally, it would be the intake staff that does that, but it's just not what we can do at the moment. So then on our website, we have it, they automatically filter to an iframe that PetPoint creates. So we have them separated by pets in care, lost pets, and found pets. And then so these are the links that go directly to those on our website. So it just automatically populates with the pets that have been found by private citizens, or those that have been lost by their owners. So you'll see there's a lot more photos here than there are on the found reports. And then for pets that come into SSHS, the only way these will populate is if the intake is actually created in PetPoint. And then we have a separate section for stray pets in care. So the only way they filter to this is if they have one of 3 statuses. Oh gosh. So only stray hold, microchip hold, and eviction holds will populate to this iframe. And this is 100% customizable in your PetPoint settings. And then the moment you can also change this part too, but we have it removed from that site once their status is changed to something other than stray hold, microchip hold, or eviction hold. So these are some other things that I thought I would share that we're doing to help get pets back home. And this is really where our Radical RTO project really kicks in. So we encourage pet owners to submit a lost or found report through Lost Dogs Illinois. Lost Dogs Illinois is a huge Facebook page. They have a huge following, and they have a website that automatically filters them to their Facebook page. It's completely volunteer run, and they show lost pets, found pets, sightings. If you just like happen to see a dog while you're driving, you can submit a sighting. And they keep folders and everything pretty organized. And it really has helped with pets getting back home. So one unique thing about the county that we're in, Cook County is the largest county in the state of Illinois that doesn't have its own animal control facility. They have animal control, but they only serve unincorporated Cook County. So then those pets have really nowhere to go. So we have contracted with them, as well as a Chicago Animal Care and Control. It's the big Chicago facility, and we house their stray pets. So then if you have a pet that is found within a municipality, it is up to that municipality to house the animal or find housing for it. So I created a table that has the location and where your pet would go if you lost a pet in that location. And it is searchable. It has all of the information for the location. So it has like the municipality listed here. You can search. So we're in Chicago Heights. And you can see it, impound location is South Suburban Humane Society, the phone number and the address. We have found that it is incredibly confusing for pet owners. So I created this during COVID just to hopefully help people find their pet, because it's rough. We also created an SSHS Found Pets Facebook page. So any pet that comes in, whether it be from a private citizen or the police or animal control, it gets a date, the address or intersection the pet was found, and a picture. So we maintain that pretty regularly. And then we started a Lost Pet Brigade. So we have volunteers that take these pets that are posted on our Facebook page. So you can see Dana Cortez, she's one of our longtime volunteers. She shared it to 219 Lost and Found Pets of Northwest Indiana. That particular community is right on the border, so she thought it would be good to share it there. And then we have people post signs that say found pet with a picture and just our phone number to call. We don't give much information more than that on those signs. We just want people to be able to recognize the pet and then come and ask us for more information and things like that.
Hey, Megan, can I ask a really quick question if you go back to that? And first off, I'm not sure if you can see the chat, but people are already so impressed by the stuff that you're doing. Can we actually take a couple slides back to the cool, innovative, this consolidated technology they made? Where are you posting this? Is it on your lost and found pages? Is it in your texting programs?
It is on our website, southsuburbanhumane.org/lostfound. Let's see, I think that link was on our the very first slide. I can share it in the chat once I'm done here. So yeah, it's on there, and I've shared it with, we're part of the Chicagoland Life Saving Coalition. So a lot of those shelters have it as well, because we realize as a coalition what a mess this is, and difficult for owners to find their pets. So yeah, it's come in handy. Our staff references it anytime somebody calls. If somebody calls from a community that we don't necessarily take from, we look at this, we search, and we give them the information of where the pet hopefully went.
Amazing. And then if you want to go back to the yard signs, I just have one question about that, and I promise I'll stop interrupting you. So are these is it a static photo that's on those signs, or do you actually put a photo of the specific pet? How do those work?
So I print the pictures when we have a stray pet come in. The volunteer that's assigned to that area just watches the Facebook page. And then they pick up these printed pictures, and they're just Ziploc bags that are packaging taped to these signs, so they're removable and changeable. And then we just reuse the signs.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So then we started this other avenue. We followed this modeled it after Front Street's shelter program, their texting program. So we see, people can text this lost one to 56525, and then it sends them text messages of the link to fill out the lost and found report, the link to our website, the link to that chart, reminders. Hey, did you check the shelter today? Hey, did you go here and check these other locations? And it's a series of, I think it's up to 60 days. It's pretty consistent at the beginning, and then it tapers out. And by the end, we hope that the owner has either unsubscribed because they found their pet, or they get to the last step and then they know what to do if, after the texting ends. And then we also did a mailer with a free ID tag and a free microchip to our highest intake communities, which are 3 local communities right around us here. So this was a picture of the first person that came for the free microchip and the free tag. And that's all I really got. I can look at the chat now and see if there's anything I can answer.
Awesome. And Diane, I do see you here as well from the team. So please introduce yourself, and if there's anything you wanted to add before we open it up to questions.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Diane Mealer from Pet Point. And just wanted a couple of things that South Suburban isn't using but might be beneficial to other clients with Pet Point is that we do have actually, with Pet Point, there is a lost found search. And I wanted to just share that quick. So there is a way to match up pets and people using the lost found search. So as you can see here, there's a way to say, oh, hey, not every shelter has a Megan who knows their population so well and can make that match themselves. So you can use the database to do this. You can do something like I lost a black dog. Well, let's go with color group here. And when you click the search, Pet Point will go in and search and find your matches, and then you can quickly go in and look at that animal description. There's also a way in Pet Point to set it up so that you can do regional sharing. So if you have, 2 communities who are really close together, and it's that question of, I don't know, did they take the stray to A or did they take the stray to B? If they're both on Pet Point, you can actually create a regional sharing group so that you share lost and found reports in your Pet Point database. And it just makes it easier for your community to help locate their pet. And any information on that for those who are on Pet Point, you can just go to support and click on community, type in lost found and get details there, or reach out to our support team. But we just love what South Suburban did and wanted to make sure that it got highlighted and featured.
Thank you so much. And I really love and appreciate the opportunity for collaboration among shelters. And this was actually one of the questions that we received the most, is how to sort of innovate the Pet Point technology for lost and found. So thank you for being here and sharing that. So we have a little bit of time for questions as well, but I'm going to ask you, Diane, if you can pull down your screen for me really quick. There's something else that I wanted to share. Hillary from the Austin Pets, American Pets Alive team has created something really amazing for Dia de los Muertos, and I wanted her to share it really quick before we open it up to questions.
Hi everyone, thanks Bobby. Let me share my screen real quick. Is it sharing?
Yes.
So this is the ofrenda at Austin Pets Alive. We put it in our community kitchen. I worked with one of my colleagues who recently moved from Mexico, so she knew the tradition really well. We have our salt cross in the middle, and a lot of different things for all the dogs and cats and people we've lost. I lost my heart dog this year, and that kind of inspired me. I figured we all really struggle with this, and it gave us a space to, really honor our loved ones.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I know I just saw this pop up in an email, and I wanted to make sure you could share this with the group. I did want to open it back up for Megan and questions. Megan, it looks like there was a question about what sort of technology you're using for your texting program. Do you maybe want to speak up about that and maybe talk about how difficult or easy it was to implement?
Yeah, so we used Simple Texting. It's just an online program that it's really easy to set up. I think the longest time consuming part was drafting what I wanted the automated text messages to say, but then it's just kind of plug and play, and it was really easy to use. There is a fee that we pay. I don't know for sure if it's per month or per year or how we have it set up, but we overall think that that's worth it, worth the charge for the service that we're offering. But yeah, and I pretty much just took Front Street's program and changed it to say South Suburban Humane Society and submitted our links instead of theirs, and changed a little bit of the time frame of things that we send them out and things like that. But it was overall pretty easy to set up. It only took me, I think, a day and it was during COVID, working from home without interruptions, but it was great. So
thank you so much. And a huge shout out to Ryan Hinderman from the Front Street Animal Shelter for that amazing, innovative idea. And a huge thank you to Petco Love and the Innovation Showdown. When we talk about collaboration among shelters, the Innovation Showdown was one of the first places that I saw real collaboration publicly from a lot of our national funders. And so if y'all have ideas, Mary, are they bringing that back next year? Who knows? You'll just be there with your lights on, ready to rock if they do. Love it. So there's a lot of awesome ideas out there on that website if y'all want to check them out. Any other questions from the group?
Actually, I'm just going to add something there too, Bobby. El Paso won the Bob and Diane Hoover Award that Pet Health sends out for Innovation Award last year for what they were able to do with Lost Found. If you haven't taken a look at El Paso's page, I'll find it and post it here too. They've done some amazing things using their PetPoint database and created a beautiful map that they've got for people to find their pets. So I'll throw that in the chat too. Just a great example of another innovative innovation that's been done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So
Thank
we
you.
have about another minute or so for questions. So if anybody has a last minute question, feel free to speak up. All right. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for being here and all the innovative things that you're doing at your shelter. And Diane and the rest of the team, thank you so much for helping showcase some of the technology to help get these lost pets back home. Thanks. All right. So before we move on, as I know you have seen that we've been trying to get really ahead of the schedules for the Monday calls, and we have about 5 or 6 weeks of calls listed out. We are going to be taking a short break during the holidays, probably sometime in November and also through the end of the year, New Year's. But we really want to start getting ready for the upcoming calls in 2022. And these calls aren't these calls unless we have all of you coming on to talk to your peers. So I'm going to put a link in the chat for submissions. So just as we were talking about with Bethany earlier about speaking at some of the national conferences, a great way to get your feet wet in that situation is coming on one of these calls. So the form that's listed here allows you to submit for yourself or for any of your peers that you think would be really have something interesting to talk about on the call. And so we'd love to start getting the agenda filled up for next year as well. So That's my quick plug. And now let's go to our second speaker. So Stephanie, I see you here. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Well, I know we talk so much about data and being a really evidence-based movement that we really want to drive with data and evidence. And it really wouldn't be possible without the innovation that was happening at Shelter Animals Count. And so Stephanie, as a new executive director in her position, is going to be here to share about the amazing things that we're doing, how you can get involved, and how you should really be using their data and your data to drive that narrative forward. So over to you, Stephanie.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, can you see it? Perfect. Okay, so like Bobby mentioned, I'm new to Shelter Animals Count. I started in August, so just finished my third full month. At the end of last week, I came from 12 years of development and marketing and some operations experience in the shelter world at Animal Rescue League of Iowa. So I'm really excited to share some of the things that Shelter Animals Count is working on and share how you can play a huge role in really that next iteration, since we're really at a pivotal point right now where there's a lot that you can play a role in and help guiding that future direction. So just a quick overview about Shelter Animals Count for either those of you who aren't familiar or need a refresher. SAC is the organization that manages the national database currently of sheltered animals, but we'll talk a little bit more about how we're expanding in a minute. And the goal is to provide facts and insights to enable life-saving decision-making. So a little bit about our history. About 10 years ago now, which was crazy, some of the national organizations began talking about how do we get accurate animal data. We have all of these assumptions and models to guess how many animals are in shelters or how many are being adopted or how many are strays or euthanized, et cetera. But we really didn't at that time have a consistent way that everyone was able to submit that data to a national database that we could look at not only individual and by community, state, region, et cetera, but aggregated as a whole across the country. So that's when Shelter Animals Count was formed as an independent collaborative nonprofit where we collect data from all of the animal shelter organizations, and we share that out in ways that can be useful, whether for grant funding or program development, sometimes even picking where animals are in need of transferring in and transferring out, all of those life-saving decisions that help programs and funding be developed. So the role that SAC plays with the national database is really to support all of these things that I just mentioned. So beyond the funding and the programs, also providing those talking points for national media and for researchers and students and all of the data that is needed to make some of the decisions or additional insights that we see in things like the research symposiums and other data-driven papers and news stories. So without that information, we're kind of left back to where we were prior to 10 years ago, where we're making assumptions and using one individual's experience and calling it a trend. And that's where things can get complicated. So that's where SAC is trying to, and especially moving forward, play a bigger role in providing that information so that we're not going off of anecdotal, but actually using data-driven decisions. So wanted to highlight a couple things of where we've been to talk about where we're headed next. The original basic data matrix is what was launched in the very beginning, and that's on the left in the light blue. Those data sets still exist. At the beginning of this year, we rolled out really expansions of those data sets. So we added total, instead of just ending in beginning counts total, we also added an opportunity for you to include how many of that total are in foster homes. We broke out transferring in and out data to include, or to break it out to include in-state, out-of-state, and international. And then the big one that had been needed for a long time is adding additional species. So beyond just cats and dogs, we now have all of these other species and categories that you can now enter their data or your data. We had a very problematic and challenging tech rollout at the beginning of the year, which if you've used Shelter Animals Count this year, you already know that. We're getting back on track. We have a new technology partner with Kinship that's really helping us work out some of those bugs that still exist. And then also is going to be helping us tackle some of these other projects. So you can still go in at any point and enter your data for 2021, even in arrears. You can even enter it in prior years. And the benefit of doing that now, I'll talk about a little bit later, some of the 3-year reporting that we're doing. You're only able to have your animals count in that data if you have a complete data set. So if you're missing July of 2019, we won't be able to include any of that data because we really need to look at consistent apples to apples. So that's still an opportunity. You can still go in and do that. If you need help, let us know, but you'll be hearing a lot more about that too as we come up to the end of the year and start doing some data drives for full year submission. So heading into 2022 and really through the end of this year with the little bit that we have left, we did launch a community services matrix, which I want to talk a little bit about today. And then at the end of this year, you'll hear us starting to talk more about this animal level data pilot study that we did with Tufts University Center for Shelter Dogs. It's concluding a 2-year study where we are looking at the feasibility and what is needed to collect additional data, breaking out these categories even further. So owner surrender reasons and beyond age, but going into breed and size and all of these other things, behavior information and medical information on the sheltered animal side. We'll have 80 to 100 organizations that will be able to share that information for early next year, and then talk about what that looks like going forward with our organization. So when we look at the community services data, I think the point and the goal is probably pretty obvious. Shelters for a long time now have been doing a lot more to help animals outside of within our shelter walls or within our foster-based groups. So we really wanted to collect that information so that we can look at that holistic picture of animal welfare and how the roles that our organizations are playing are helping pets either stay in the home or helping pets, keeping families together. Also, we wanted to allow other organizations who are doing this work outside of animal welfare organizations. So these can be health and human services, so food banks that are human food banks that are also providing pet food, or veterinarians that are providing low cost or free services to the public. And then there's still animal service organizations that don't do sheltering, that are providing a lot of these services, or microchip clinics, et cetera. So we really wanted a way to collect all of that information. So we're looking at a full picture. So we developed at the beginning of this year, really about early Q2, where we developed what we've been calling a beta. It's kind of a phase 1 matrix that tracks the number of owned and community animals that are receiving any sort of service. So whether that's provided at the shelter level or from another organization. And that can be tracked each month, and that is the goal, especially as we're looking to do more regular reporting. Having that information in monthly instead of at the end of the year is going to really help create that narrative, especially that media is looking for when they're asking what's happening. Telling them we'll let them know at the end of the year is just not helpful anymore.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm going to fall on this sword if you can go back, because when I hear matrix and community service matrix, I think of like Keanu Reeves in a leather trench coat.
Yes.
Can you like really simplify it for people who are like, what the heck is a community services matrix?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because that is definitely some conversations we've been having internally on the wording and language. I mean, we talk about language and labels in our industry all the time, and we've definitely been labeling things that need a refresher. So when we're saying matrix, we're basically looking at a table where you would enter your information, and I'll have some screenshots later on. But yeah, so it's a table that we're collecting. Then on the back end, we're putting that together to push back out that data in a way that's easier to digest. Thanks for bringing that up. I should definitely include a Keanu Reeves So the community services that we looked at, we had several advisory groups that helped us form this initial phase 1. So of course, the ones that generally come to mind are the veterinary services, trap, neuter, return programs, and then the pet parent support, keeping pets in homes, all of those types of things. But then we also, that was the first round, we really expanded that to get to these final 4 categories. So veterinary services, obviously, and it's important to note too, there was a lot of discussion on what we were going to track. So for pet food, for example, some shelters are tracking pounds, some are tracking bags, some are tracking families served. So we're really looking at all of ours on, you can still do that within your own organization, but for the purpose of our national database collection, we're staying true to the number of animals served. So the veterinary services, it lists out the things that we're currently tracking, and these are for all species. It's breaking it down by species when you enter your data. Behavioral services, support services, and then field services, which we are also including return to owner within the field. So animals that are avoiding an intake and outcome in your shelter software system, but you're still having an RTO, you can now count that under community service. The other one is owner intended euthanasia. So there's 2 different ways that you can track that data. You can track it in the current basic data matrix. So the current table where you're entering your sheltered animal data, if that is a service that you perform as an intake and outcome, or you can track it outside of that matrix in this now new community services area, if that's the service that you perform as a public service without an intake outcome. And we have definitions on all of these, which I'll walk through quickly in a second too. So these 4 fields in the breakouts, you'll see, like I mentioned, by species when you log into your data or into your back end of our database. So this is what it'll look like. This is just a dummy test site. But when I log in, I can now enter, as you'll see at the top, my services data, or the animal data is basically the sheltered animal data. So when you click on the top button, which you can all do now, we have already had 300 to 400 organizations entering it each month since we started in April. Really, really light rollout since we had some of these technology challenges, like I mentioned before, that really diverted our attention back to the core of what we do. And now we're looking to revisit this. I should also mention we have a data committee who is, many of them are on this call right now, that they are going to be helping survey anyone who's been submitting data, helping us look at what's been collected and come up with that phase 2. So by entering your data now, especially by going back and entering it through the beginning of the year, we'll not only be able to pull some insights on what has been happening in our communities in 2021, but we'll also be able to reach out to you and get your feedback on what was confusing, what else would you like to see, what do you think, what did you not use? And you'll see as you go into play, it's very, very much in beta form. Like, for example, there's TNR for rabbits. I don't know that any groups are doing that currently, but we didn't go into that level in looking at what data sets we needed to collect for this first round. We just put it all out there for all species. So the other thing you can do is you can enter, I'll actually show you. This is what it looks like when then you click into your data. And so, like I said, it'll break it out by species, but you can enter as much or as little of these services as you perform. So you don't have to do all of the things for all of the species every month in order to enter something. So if all you're doing is distributing pet food and you're even just keeping a tally of how much cat, how much dog, or how many cats, how many dogs you're serving, you could go in and do that. It'll take you 2 seconds and be done. But if you're going into some of these other things like the microchip clinics and the spay neuter and even crisis foster, you'll be able to do that as well. And like I said, that can change month to month as well. But in order to be counted in reporting, you'll need to enter something every month. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the login site when you go to enter your data. this is what a resource that we have on the site too, which is a PDF that really goes into these definitions. So a lot of these things can be kind of vague, like who counts TNR if multiple groups are involved, and who do we count this here, or do we count this there? So what this advisory committee did is they went through and came up with these fields over on the left, but they also then added definitions, which is going to be very hard for you to read here, but on the PDF, you'll be able to zoom in and look at every single category, what that means. So if you have a question on owner intended euthanasia, as an example, do I put it on the sheltered animal side, or do I put it on the community services side? This will go into explaining what that definition is intended for the purpose of being consistent across the board. So looking ahead, you'll see we've started with the shelter population data on the bottom left. We are moving over to this community services data on the bottom right. The intent is that we will start to then overlay those. So as we start, the goal is that as we start to continue to see intakes go down, we can see that cause and effect as a community service. We're also working with the HOS teams, and they're serving on our data committee as well, and we're serving on theirs, that we'll be able to narrow these down in partnership with our shelter software providers, so that the next round or the final round will be what everyone agrees are how and what we should be tracking, and then be able to overlay that back, which is the HOS goal on shelter intake diversion and keeping families together, and starting to show how one change really impacts these other changes that we're all going for to save more lives. And then we're going to be also starting to look at the human demographic and overlaying it over that. So the goal is that we can have a really complete picture of what's happening with pets and people in a community, so that as funding changes or program changes or other challenges come up in the community, like maybe BSL or other things that would impact families, we can show that whole dynamic as a full picture. So looking ahead, we are going to be releasing more and more reports. Like I mentioned, we're for sure going to be starting to release them on a quarterly basis, if not sooner. We already released a first half of the year 3-year comparison report, which this is a screenshot of that. And that also, your data is only included if you have the full 3 years, January through June. We just closed the reporting period for the Q1 through Q3 report that will be coming out later this year, but there is still time to have your full, which I think is going to be very, very exciting to see, a full 3-year report, 2019, 2020, 2021. You can go in now, enter all of your data, at least make sure to do it at the end of, or within the first week of January to be included, and we'll start to pull that as well. So I'll just go through these real quickly because these are also on our website, but this is a highlight from our Q1 through Q2 report, looking at the number of organizations that have those full data sets. We really are underrepresented in the East South Central area. So we are especially interested in having more data there. We were pretty equally represented though among organization types. So between or among the rescue, private, and municipal shelters. All of this information can get better the more data we have. So looking at what we had so far, it is still representative of national trends, even though an individual experience may differ from this. This is still looking at, as a whole, animal welfare in the US, what these trends were so far for the first half of the year. So the other thing to note is just with the seasonality of animal welfare and animal sheltering, January through June is a very different picture than July, August, September, which we realized. So I know a lot of us just came off of that crazy summer, or maybe you're still feeling it depending on where you're at. This is only going to be that first half of the year snapshot. But there is a lot of information that we've been able to glean from this that shows a very exciting and promising future for animal welfare. These bar charts look at the number of animals. So you can see the furthest left being 2019, furthest right being 2021. So animals surrendered by their owners number of animals are down, and you can start to see all of these animals are down because, as we know, intakes were down overall last year and so far this year. Well, January through June at least. But then when you look at these pie charts, they look at of the animals that were brought into shelters, what were those intake types? So this looks at the rate. So for example, relinquished by owner, which were the headlines that we were hearing across the board, that animals are being surrendered in record numbers. It's just not true from the trend standpoint. It absolutely is true for the organizations that have experienced that. But as a whole, the good news is we're not seeing that across the board. So you can actually see the rate of which, regardless of how many animals are coming into the shelter over these past 3 years, the rate of animals that were surrendered by their owner really hasn't changed, and if anything has gone down. So then when we look at outcomes, similar thing, adoptions, everything, the outcomes you expect to be lower in numbers on these bar charts because there were fewer animals in shelters to work with. But the exciting thing with this too, when you look at of the animals that did come in, the rate of all of their outcomes are all trending in directions that we would want to see. So the adoptions are up, the euthanasia is down, all of these really, really exciting things among really, really challenging almost 2 years now. So then this is a summary of just looking at live outcome versus not live outcome. And again, fewer animals, but of the animals in our care, we had some incredible live outcome results that are rounded up here, but they were within like 0.4% difference, still trending in the positive direction for 2021. So with that, happy to answer any questions in the time we have left. And here's my information. I'll also put it in the chat so you can reach out to me at any time with any questions. And please, please, please submit your data so we can include yours in future reporting.
Stephanie, thank you so much. With just a couple minutes left, Chris, I'm going to come to you. It looks like you had a question a little up in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we're reporting to the community data on unique animals, or the same animals would be counted, month to month if it's a recurring report that we're filling in, or both?
When you're submitting data?
Yes.
Okay. Could you?
Or the community services.
So I believe, but I'll double check because I'm still new here, but I believe we're intended for that to be each occurrence. So for example, if you're providing pet food, if you have a pet food distribution once a month and you have the same 5 cats that come every month, you would count those each month because that still is a service provided to those animals on that monthly basis. Does that answer your question?
It does, thanks.
So unique transaction versus unique individual. We want each transaction so we can talk about every touch. I love that. I think Jesse, did you have a question in the chat as well?
Yeah, it was just whether finder foster support would be counted on this side versus the shelter side. Just thinking about, the number of shelters that offer support to community members who find kittens and how we might look at potential impacts for that, even if they're not impounded.
Could you explain what you mean by finder foster support?
Yes, so somebody finds kittens, they approach the shelter or clinic and they say, here's a kitten care kit. Here's some instructions, keep them as healthy as you can. And then even potentially talking about outcomes that are not shelter based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. It's great feedback for us to look at this phase 2 in particular. There is technically under the community services, under support services, a rehoming support. So you could look at it that way. This is really the feedback that we're looking at surveying in this round 2. So I would love if you sent me emails on any of these questions that maybe we haven't either identified. There's a lot of things we have identified that we need to address in phase 2, but these are all great things that I don't know that we have the answers for yet, but that's what we want to dig into to provide those definitions going forward.
Awesome. And Stephanie, one last thing, if you can drop it in the chat. I think Cheyenne was looking for just your reporting, like what you have available to be able to look at outside of just the presentation. So any links to your website would be very helpful. Thank you all. It is the top of the hour. I'm going to toss it over to Mary Smith to close us out.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, everybody. I want to thank Kristen for kicking it off with reminding us that we need to be grateful this month and all months. I want to thank Megan, Diane, and Hillary. Pet Point has some of my most favorite people involved in that organization. So definitely check out those reports. And Stephanie, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for reminding us that shelter animals count, as well as the people attached to them. So I hope everybody has a great week. BJ, I love your hat. I saw it for a moment. Houston, thank you for putting a hat on. April Moore, you look sad, but I love your beanie. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.